G'day, g'day, g'day. Mathematical KM here. Remember, their initials, not a title. Keith Molumby. This is, I think, round 7 of the Canberra Cup, playing at the Canberra Chess Club. And I'm weighing in at 14.57. Playing Angelo, who's much of a muchness, just 32 points uphill. I've only met in FIDE rated games twice before. I've actually been lucky enough to pull off the win 2 times with the black pieces, but tonight I have the white pieces. So what will happen? And to throw a little bit more confusion into the mix, I decided, just for a bit of a change, to not play the water horse. What, pray tell, are we going with? We're going to have a bit of a crack at building a wall of stone. Let's see how we go. So far, so good. And this is a recommended start by one of the chess bras, Aman, GM Aman. So far, you haven't given away that you're necessarily playing the stone wall. Interesting, the fianchetto over there, King's Indian stuff. So I finished my little pawn pyramid. Still haven't necessarily given away that we're going to be going for a stone wall. He might think that he knows that I am. It's also, it's almost like I'm facing a hippo, which is a bit of an about-face turnaround. Right, what do we do? We've got our stone wall of stone pawns. Don't know about the C pawn Charlie wanting to go backwards there, but this pawn is definitely keeping my knight out of e5. Should it come to it, if they are refusing to let you throw a knight into e5, that's when it's time for the e-pawn push. Thanks, Jim Aman. And talking about facing a hippo, it's starting to, 80% of the moves over there, starting to have a bit of sympathy for all those people who face my water horse. Not really. Okay, so knight out, threatening to dive in. It's also in a good spot for protecting the G-pawn from the fianchettoed light bishop. Fianchettoed light bishop. Let's get this down so we can see a little bit more of what the computer is suggesting. Okay, now we don't want to let his knight come in to the equivalent. Hasn't got any pawns there or anything, but one of the moves to do that is our B knight and our bishop to give us 2 attackers to keep his knight out. But one of the suggested strategies in the stone wall from Jim Aman is taking the long way around and activating our, I guess you could call him a French bishop, not because of the pawn structure, but because of how useful he is. So what was I saying about the percentage of the moves that are facing a hippo here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 7 moves that have been played are straight out of the first 10 moves to set up the thick-skinned hippo. So it's kind of interesting. And being on the other side of that, I'm thinking, well, come at me, bro. Which is, of course, not what a hippo is wanting to do. The hippo is going to counterattack to whatever I do. So, interesting. All right. We start the journey of our bishop. It's interesting the computer is giving it to black and really suggesting that black do come at me with the e5 push. Which, in a way, is something that I'm actually wanting, because I will be taking with the f-pawn, freeing up my rook, because the Stonewall is about nothing if not a kingside attack. There's kings over on the king side. But it does look like the computer is saying if black blows up the centre now before I'm organised, that there's an edge to black there at the moment. So that's interesting. But he throws in the knight coming forward, and he's seeing if I'm awake, because not only would that be a free pawn, but if I really don't do anything right, it's going to be a knight fork on queen and rook. But no, the old mathematical KMs will wake up to that one. So queen here, which also, for what it's worth, is protecting Barry the B pawn, which is the base of our pawn chain. It's still on the way in terms of a lot of the Stonewall attacks, and it's protecting the E pawn. Also, his knight would be hanging if I make any move at all with my knight. Not that there's too many about the place, but it's not exactly a secure place. If he's tempted into reducing his king's safety with one of these two moves, I think I'm not that unhappy. So what does Angelo do? Well, I've gained a tempo, I guess, because that knight has come in and gone out. And what did I do? I developed the queen and also get to bring in my other knight. So if he does take my knight, I can take back with a knight, which is good knight to black. Well, not really, but throw that in there. Okay, happy to see that. Blocks the light bishop and allows me to play the move that every Stonewall player watching all of GM games wants to play. We throw in the knight. Really, and half the basis of this opening appears to be they will hate having a knight there so much, they will take it, you will take back with your F pawn, and that gives you the open file, and we attack. Attack, attack, attack. He took it. We take it. We've got our semi-open file. The rook's in the right place. The evel's starting to reflect a little bit of an edge to white. He threw that knight in there, and it was best. Now, it's interesting that the computer likes knight takes, or a4, which is just like starting an attack over there, or even rook to c1. My thinking, and I'll explain this now before you see it, is should I take with the knight, and he takes with the pawn, that comes with tempo, because the bishop can't take the pawn because it's protected, and what's more, the pawn is threatening my bishop. And if I go the other way, if I take with the bishop and he takes with the pawn, well, my knight is threatening the pawn and the pawn is not threatening my knight. So I've got the knight threatening it, he's got the bishop protecting it, so it's 1-1. I can try and get a second one and try and win that central pawn in the middle. So on that basis, I've gone bishop takes, considered inaccuracy, okay, d takes, and from here, I guess there's a couple of ways of thinking about it, but I have thrown the queen out. It's minus 0.8 to black, but I currently have two pieces threatening that pawn. Computer likes f5, and I can see that if he wants to damage the pawns in front of his king, it's probably a good idea. and the computer does know that e times f6, I would definitely be taking hey peasant en passant. Bishop g3, and then he'd be really insist and play f5 with what was his e-pawn. Yeah, it actually makes a degree of sense, but I will have fixed my doubled pawns, and it'd be interesting to see how that all ends up looking. But that forcing the issue with Freddie and Angelo, looks like that might be something to take on board if you have a look through that line, is not what happened, but instead I've got 2, Black's got 2, and I would need 3, so I can't go in with the knight, because even though his next piece is the queen, the ladies would come off and I would lose the knight. So at the moment, can't touch that e-pawn. So what should I do? Well, I decided to make a threat. Considered an inaccuracy, but I would like some of those pawns to move in front of the king. If the bishop comes out, well, the bishop's not going to come out, the pawn would take him. And if he moves that pawn forward, which might be tempting, protecting the queen and getting out of the way of the bishop, then it's half of a little plan is to throw the bishop here. His bishop is not going to run away there. The bishops are going to come off. And I'll end up with either a pawn here, or if he takes with his pawn, I'll end up with a rook right up there. It'd be aggressive chess. And this was an inaccuracy. He's threatening my queen, I think, for the second time on that diagonal. But that makes a difference for poor old Eddie, the e-pawn, because now it is 2 versus 1. It's a little interesting in that I can't go with the knight or I lose my queen, but if I take with the queen, well, and with that bishop being there, it's just quite... the ladies are going to come off. If he moved his queen, I'd win a rook. So it's... I win that central pawn. So I've gone up a pawn. And now the ladies have to come off. You can see 0.7 to white is the ladies coming off. After that, it's 2.5 to white. So only real move. And now Black has got a couple of... it's Black's move, a couple of issues. The e-pawn is not protected. And it is under threat, and should it fall, it would actually come with a little threat to start with. And what else is he looking at? I guess my knight, and this is an interesting way of defending that pawn, is making a threat on the knight. Best move. Because sure, I could win the pawn. Actually, let's see what it thinks of it. I was thinking I can't do that because I'll drop the knight. But if I take the pawn, he takes the knight, I take the rook, he takes the bishop, then I have lost a bishop and a knight, and he has lost a rook and a pawn. Actually equal, but well, that's a bit of a who do you think comes out best on that? Let's have a quick I mean, I like my pieces. They're closer to his king than his ones are to mine. Let's just throw this in. No, straight to minus 1.2 with bishop time. He takes. I take. He takes with the rook. And the material is, I'm actually up 1 point of material, but the evaluation is 1.35 to black. Because 2 bishops could end up being quite handy. And I didn't actually like the look of that myself at the time. So I liked my knight. I had visions of that knight doing interesting and clever things. So I decided to protect my knight and pull it to g3. Giving black the chance to protect the e-pawn. I decide let's double the rooks. Okay, Angela's giving me a chance to go wrong again. Let's not lose my dark bishop. So let's look at the computer moves. Knight to f1, knight to h1, knight to e2. Get out of the way. Silly English knigget. It's got to move. Knight f1 is best, which is interesting. It's backwards back there. Knight to h1 is second best. Third best, so obviously that's the one I've picked, is knight to e2. Trying to stay out of the way of the rooks. Okay, so initiative to black. H5 is what the computer wants. And G5 is third best. And that's what's played. It's pressuring the bishop to move. And the bishop moving is, 2.5 points of eval better than anything else. And somehow it's a great move. You could have said it was the only move, but it's a great move. So I'm not sure how chess.com works that one out. But to move along, it's now on black. It's interesting, c5, smashing that middle open. Having said that, if c5 takes, I'd like to take back with the e-pawn and keep my structure. More than happy with that. It's pretty standard in the Stonewall, that actually. Or f6, which is again attacking the pawn chain. Or bishop c8. Trying to get that bishop involved. So what does Angelo go with? e6. Stopping me from pushing the pawn myself, I guess. I had considered that because might want to protect the e-pawn a bit, but it's threatening there. But it's also letting my bishop go over and clean up the c-pawn. So pawns could become important. But I decided let's try and open his king up and get out. At the moment, his rooks cannot get in front or to my right-hand side of his king. So if I can attack quickly and fast on that side, you never know. So I've played the h-pawn. He's brought his bishop in, and that actually does help him very soon. So I take. He takes back. Okay, so if I can get rooks on that h-file, and that might be easier for me than for him. The bishop's still a pretty good defender of the king with that sort of thing. But let's get my bishop out of the way. He moves his bishop so it's defending that pawn. I thought let's immobilise that pawn. And it lets me, if I can, it gives me a direct path for getting my knight into quite a useful outpost. Brought his king. I'm sending the knight to the outpost. Excellent. It's called a mistake. And the expected move is knight to h5 check, played. His best move is bishop takes, he's played it. Only move is g takes. It's plus 1.9 at the moment. And the king forward kind of worked for Angelo, because now he can get his rooks in to fight directly against my rooks. I am that one pawn up. Get it to an end game and win with that one pawn. I'm not that type of a player yet. Got to do the end game course over and over and over. But I've doubled my rooks, so that was good. Okay, so I can't take the pawn because of his rook and his king defend it. Fair enough. Now, that pawn is pinned. It cannot move. Because that pawn cannot move, if given the chance, bishop to f3, the pawn cannot take it. The king can't come forward. A rook behind doesn't help protect it. If I can get that bishop to here because it can't move, then I'll be able to take the pawn. If the bishop takes it, I can take the bishop with the rook. It's all starting to happen. King moves away. The pawn could just take the bishop. Okay. Now we've got the doubled rooks. That pawn's only got one protector. Okay, the king goes back. We're starting to see the pattern. It is plus 2.5 to white. It's funny how rook g2, which is just continuing the pattern, is the top move. Bishop g3. Wonder what's going on with that one. Might be interesting to see. And also just starting to do something along the lines of c4, d4. I could start to try and make a bit of a difference over here. If I get rid of that pawn, go forward with the e pawn. If he were to, he couldn't take because I could take that rook with my rook. Probably something with the pawns might have been the way to go, but with those two the repetition. And I knew Angelo was higher. I thought he was a bit more higher, but higher than me. So the draw won't hurt my rating. It'll actually raise it a little. It is interesting that at this stage, and this was adventuring into something I don't normally play, being the Stonewall. Mechanically, I did get the kingside attack that it's meant to generate, and I wasn't 100% confident on the pawn mechanics and forcing one through there. I accepted the repetition, so it's on 2.3, but it's on 2.3 recommending the backwards and forwards. So it's kind of almost recommending the repetition, but with at times other suggestions. So in the end we had a draw, and it was interesting that I was facing a near Hippo with a stone wall and came out with a draw. So that was a fun game, and I will see you. Remember to like, share and subscribe. I'll see you guys after Monday's game next week. So bye for now.